Hello, I'm Darren Magee and welcome to my Mental Health Information and Awareness channel. Now today's topic comes from the question, is cancel culture vindictive narcissism? This is following on from a previous video I'd made on that subject. So first of all, to look at that question, I think it's important to recognize that whenever we give a label to something, whenever we give a name to something, sometimes it can be helpful in the sense that we get an idea of what it is we're talking about. But we have to recognize as well, when we give a label to something, to people, to movements, things like that, it's the images they bring up. For example, if I was to say conspiracy theorist, you think of what that conjures up. That conjures up maybe an image of somebody wearing a tinfoil hat, seeing sinister agendas everywhere. Not necessarily a whistleblower, someone who's trying to highlight some sense of wrongdoing or a cover-up somewhere. Another example would be, if I was to say social justice warrior, we might be thinking of somebody who just sees unfairness in everything, just wants to destroy for the sake of it. And that, again, is not necessarily so. Because, we could be talking about an activist, someone who wants to bring about change for the better. Because the truth is, there are people out there, everybody, myself included, there's people out there who endure offence every single day. They endure it through things like, say, racism, classism, sexism, sectarianism, ageism, and many other isms and ists. They endure it every single day. So I'm not talking about those who are advocating for change, for improvement. For today's video, I'm going to be looking at those who demand perfection from others, perhaps oblivious to their own aggressions and imperfections. They want to cancel out someone for perceived offence. They want to end them, their career, their lifestyle. Not necessarily bring about change through a healthy debate. So let's look at it. Well, in researching this and listening to some of the targets, as well as listening to those who want to end something, to cancel others, cancelling doesn't so much seem to be, I won't watch their movies anymore, I won't buy those products anymore, I won't listen to their music. There seems to be some kind of appetite for destruction. There's aggression through harassment because of some perceived superior morality. And also, we hear a lot from famous people, actors and people like that who have been cancelled. So I think it's important to recognise, you don't have to be famous to be a target. A one-time friend, an ex-partner, work colleagues, the next door neighbour, anybody can cancel out other people every bit as much as they can be cancelled themselves. There seems to be a culture there where any perceived offence, it means like the target is beyond any kind of redemption or correction or whatever. They must be cancelled. So this seems to be like all or nothing thinking at work. Good people do good things, bad people do bad things. It's like there's no shades in between. And the more outraged or offended someone is, the harder that target must be punished. They must lose self-respect, self-esteem, work, friends, family. They must be ostracised, boycotted. Now, some are saying this like a new culture of what is acceptable and what isn't. It's a culture of where my offence is more important than anything else. Well, that isn't actually new at all, and I'm going to look closer at that later on. But what we have today, in today's world, we have things like social media, instant communication, 24-hour news. There are records of almost everything anybody's ever done or said publicly, every picture they've liked, every comment that they've challenged, whatever. What we have now just means we have instant communication, which means there is a bigger audience and those movements gain momentum a lot quicker. And that instant connection, that instant communication, although it's a good thing in so many ways, like everything else if it's misused, it can generate mass triangulation, a mob culture, if you will, where the target gets hit repeatedly from all sides. Those who shout the loudest are the most right. In that movement, there seems to be a bit of a disconnect where it's often a case of, I can do and say what I want because I'm right, but you can't because you're wrong. I get my free speech, you don't get yours. Another disconnect is that someone may be offended by something, outraged even, and something that somebody else has said or done. But they have no problem wishing that their target, you know, something awful happens, they get cancer and die or whatever, they have no problem wishing awful things to happen to their friends and family. There is also that aspect where things get twisted as well, you know, a series of conclusions being jumped to. Like I say, good people do good things, bad people do bad things. There's no in between. There's no people do things, you know. And as I say, things get twisted. For example, someone might ask the question, you know, what do you fancy for lunch? And they reply, well, I'd like a bacon sandwich. You know, by the time that's reached 3 or 4 other people, it's become, you know, he says we should kill all vegans. Let's hate him, you know. So again, there is that appetite for condemnation and destruction. So what are the characteristics of the cancel culture? Well, from the outside, it looks like they believe they are justified. They are, if you will, they are advocates. They are warriors, if you will. They are fighting some great moral battle. Their outrage proves how virtuous they are. But there doesn't seem to be any interest, any little or no interest maybe, in learning or hearing anything that maybe doesn't fit their narrative, doesn't suit what they believe. So they're not really open to difference, not really curious about anything, which in turn can lead to little or no growth, in which case that brings no meaningful change. So it looks like there's a lot of anger there. Now, who am I or anyone else to say somebody does not have a right to be angry about something? But with that anger, there seems to be, it's almost like they're intellectually fragile, emotionally reactive to things. It's not really being regulated, not really maybe understanding why they're angry, why something needs to change. So does that make it narcissism, or does that make it vindictive narcissism? Well, again, like I said earlier on, when we give something a label, give someone a label, I don't believe everyone involved in this is necessarily a narcissist, but let's look at the behaviors and the tactics a little closer. Okay, so there are indicators of 2 types of narcissism here, both grandiose and vulnerable. Okay, now grandiose is being entitled, it's being right. Vulnerable is being easily wounded, offended, resistant to criticism, sensitive to criticism, very easily hurt. And we do have a lot of anger in the sense of the entitlement and the justification. And those engaged in it seem to put themselves into this role of either hero or victim or wounded hero. You know, it's the target that's always the villain. There seems to be little to no resilience to disappointment, difference. There's no openness to debate or new ways of seeing things. There seems to be more evidence of condemnation and judgmental thinking rather than critical thinking. And listening to some of the targets who've been on the wrong end of the cancel culture, it looks like it's not so much about winning in the sense that they bring about change. It's more about winning by destroying the target. So you get friends, family, workplaces, they're targeted as well. They're often guilty through association. It is also another way of isolating the target, as other people tend to back away out of fear in case they're targeted next. Now, that's not to say that people involved in the cancel culture are narcissists, but there are characteristics, there are behaviors consistent. So in reality, or rather in my reality, because my reality may not be the same as yours, and that's perfectly okay. What I think is real change does not come about through fear, because that only sends whatever the issue is underground. All fear does is bring about compliance. That's not change, that is obedience. I think as well that if we remember, offence can be taken every bit as much as it can be given. There is a difference between intent and effect. Other things to think about. Again, as I said earlier, I don't think, you know, how someone say advocating for change, being labelled as part of what they would call like a self-righteous cult helps, because I think that adds to further polarisation, because free speech is for everyone. There are already laws in place. There's laws like libel laws, laws against hate speech, incitement to hatred. And they're there to protect people. They're there to protect everyone. They may not be perfect. I'm no lawyer, you know, maybe they need to change to be adapted, updated or whatever. But they are not there to shut down anything that someone disapproves of. Because I am offended is not an argument, not in and of itself. The argument is why it is offensive and why it has to change for the better. Because some people can be offended by happiness, they can be offended by equality. The argument is why is it offensive and why it has to change. Anger does not prove how noble and virtuous someone is. To be disagreed with is not the same as being disrespected. Everybody has the right to be heard. We all have these rights, but we also have responsibilities. If change is needed, let it come. Let it come through healthy debate, education, not fear, terror and oppression, because again, I think that would just lead to a culture of hypocrisy where people are guarding every word, apologising for having a thought. It would bring about a culture of fault-finding and shaming. And lastly, is this new? I don't think it is at all. I think it's always been there. History is full of absolutists. You look at our history, world history, the torture of heretics, imprisoning, exiling, the execution of dissidents, burning of witches, and it's all in the name of God, all in the name of church, all in the name of the party, the state, and so on. Those who carry this out are moral and virtuous. And just like in those examples from the past, a lot of the time they're friends and family. They're often found guilty as well, just through association. The target was guilty, and they work backwards from there. So, those are my thoughts on cancel culture. I'd be interested in your comments if you agree or disagree. If you have any perspectives, please use the comment box below. I always like reading your comments and answering them when I can. Please consider subscribing to my channel for future updates on mental health related topics. Thanks for watching.